Let's start. Welcome, guys. Today we are celebrating the first year anniversary of Dynamics 365 user group for India, which we launched last year. And this is session number 20. So, what we will be doing today is I will be talking about a quick group introduction. Then we will have today's sessions, and then I will also talk about what are the upcoming sessions in this group. Just before we proceed, we would like to call out that the views expressed in these sessions are from the speakers based on their knowledge and their willingness to share with the community. It does not represent the view of their employers or Microsoft. If you wish to implement any of the ideas shared in these sessions, please check with your implementation team and try them in the test environment before applying anything in the production environment. These sessions are recorded on Teams and they will be available on our YouTube channel. So if you do not consent to be part of a recording session, then now it's a good time to disconnect. Moving on. Know your group, guys. So this is Dynamics 365 user group for India, which is focused on connecting with Dynamics 365 professionals worldwide, learning through each other's experience and growing together. We are available on LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. We are getting great support on LinkedIn. We are already 790 plus Dynamics 365 professionals who are connected on LinkedIn. And it's all because of the love and support of the global Dynamics community, our supporters, our speakers, and most important, you, our live audience who join these sessions by taking out time from their personal life. And we have reached this milestone. So, on behalf of all the volunteers, I would like to say a big thanks to all of you for supporting us. Uh, a quick glimpse of what we have done in the past. We have done almost 20 sessions in the past, and Sunil has been quite supportive for our group, so thanks for that. And platform convergence has been one of our key focus from last 1 year. So as you can see on the screen, we have been doing sessions on platform convergence, dual write, warehouse management. We covered business events, virtual entity, logic apps. We had some sessions on Business Central. Then we talked about Power BI and using Azure integration. We also had some sessions on vendor onboarding, X++ programming, Dynamics 365 HR. And last month we had a session on using Git as a version control for finance and operation. And all these sessions are available on our YouTube channel. So feel free to check it out, watch them, give us feedback, and we can continue improving the way we organize these sessions. Today we have Sunil Garg and his team from Microsoft Seattle joining us to share about platform convergence and One Dynamics, One Platform features which Microsoft is planning to roll out. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Sunil and I'll stop sharing my screen. Over to you, Sunil. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Rachit, and good morning, everyone. And before we start, just want to thank my team here. It's Friday night, 10 o'clock in Seattle. So I'm sure, we all just came back from dinner and such. So I just want to, share my appreciation and gratitude for my team here. Um, and Rama, you want to share the deck and we can get started.
Somehow I don't have permissions to share the deck.
Rachit,
Let
you
me
probably
check
have to
just a
make
minute.
us present.
Yeah, done. Can you check now? Hi, Faisal. Thanks for joining. Glad to have you.
That's it. Hey, Sunil. Hey, like, hey, everyone.
Good, good to see you, Fazil.
Likewise, Sunil. Thanks
You
for joining so
always
late.
You always look the same anytime I see you. I don't know what's the secret of your
Energy.
I should sync with
It,
you offline someday.
it's his brand. He's very on brand. It's good. It's good. Yeah. Well done.
I noticed the new MVP stuff, right? That has changed for sure.
Okay, that is that the secret? Okay. Okay.
Uh, I have shared my screen.
Hi, Adil.
I hope you can see it.
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
see Rama. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, you want to let's go to the next slide, Rama. So just want to introduce my team. here, and we all work on one Dynamics, one platform, which is a reflection of the fact that how cross-cutting and broader work stream one Dynamics, one platform is in our organization. So, and there are a lot more, there's an army of people that actually helps and works on this work stream. So just want to thank my team, the broader team here. So moving to the next slide, Rama. I think Teams is or the connection is very slow. So I'm pretty sure some of you have already, seen this content, at least the first few slides and the first few discussion topics. It is pretty much the same. And the reason it is pretty much the same is because, we talk about concepts, we talk about approach, and we talk about principles. And those are not going to change, right? I mean, those were established when we started, and those are the cornerstone around which we are executing. So those things are not going to change, and hence you will find us talking about that over and over again, almost in the same language and the same content. But what will change after that is when we get into the feature discussions, when we get into the roadmap discussions, and the team here will share what is the latest and the greatest. So that is where things will change. But just to set the expectation, the first 10 minutes, some of you must have already be familiar with. So if we go to the next slide, Rama. So the question that keeps coming, quite frequently is, what is one Dynamics and one platform? And what are we trying to solve? Why is it important now? Why was it not talked about 10 years ago, right? So what we're trying to express here is the fact that first, an acknowledgement that this is not um, this is not a innovation that we are trying to do here. This is not something that we are solving, which the problem which has not existed and something that we have uncovered and we want to solve it. So it is not an innovation from that perspective, but it is an acknowledgement that this problem has existed ever since there were business applications in enterprises. There were Dynamics business applications and there were third-party business applications. And enterprise will have most likely more than one business application, more than one line of businesses application. And it could be from the same vendor, it could be from Microsoft, it could be from multiple vendors, including Microsoft. So what has happened over years is our community, which comprises of ISVs and partners and customers also, who are tech savvy, they took the challenge on themselves and they started to solve these problems where different business applications within an enterprise has to talk to each other to create efficiencies amongst this business processes for its users. So they took on themselves to try and solve these integration problems. And what that resulted in is, of course, implementation cost goes up, but also for the same set of products, there are different kinds of experiences across different kinds of users, different kinds of enterprises, which also results in different kinds of challenges, different kinds of problems. And if Microsoft is part of that ecosystem, then we get to see different kinds of challenges, right? Because the customization is different, the approach that was taken to solve the same problem is different across different organizations because the partner is different, the ISV is different, and everyone has a different way of solving the problem. So it is a snowball effect, right? And it has happened for a long time. And now is when we, from Microsoft perspective, we acknowledge and we want to actually help in this space, such that we have solutions out of the box for business processes to talk to each other and span Dynamics applications, right? That is the start. Of course, we also want to help as much as we can with third-party applications, and we'll talk about that also where it's appropriate. But at least the higher order bit right now is at least 2 or more Dynamics applications should be able to work with each other out of the box where it makes sense. So that is what we are trying to articulate here, which is what is the motivation to solve and what is the motivation to work for One Dynamics, one platform set of capabilities, is to address this long pending challenges which customers have been facing all along for years and years. And now, we actually want to solve that problem. Um, so that is kind of the context for what is One Dynamics One Platform. Now, how do we articulate this to our customers, right? And when I say our customers, I mean from a Microsoft perspective and also from all of you perspective. When you talk to your customers, how should you position One Dynamics One Platform? How should you explain to your customers so that we all consistently talk the same language? The concept should be the same, the reasoning should be the same, and the spirit should be the same. So the way to articulate that should be to think about the users who are going to benefit with these integrated business processes out of the box. And the users can be classified across the personas. And the personas being, we start with our developer community, right? Because everything starts there. If there is a solution that needs to be built, then there needs to be a strong developer ecosystem that is efficient to build cross-platform solutions and cross-application solutions. We don't want developers to be working on different kinds of tool sets because there is a X++ set of tool sets, and there is C# and Dataverse based tool sets, and there could be another set of tool set. And we don't want developers to be trying to learn and use all these different disparate tool sets. Instead, there is an opportunity for us to make our developers efficient from an experience perspective, from a development lifecycle perspective. And those are the scenarios that we should be targeting for our developers to make them successful, to make them efficient. Because one of the challenges is the developer skills are not easy to be found, especially when it comes to building cross-application platform solutions. So the less learning curve we have for developers, the more the success is for us to deliver solutions faster and cheaper to our customers. Once the solution is developed, tested, tried out, compiled, built, and the package is created, then comes the deployment aspect of it. That is where our administrators come in, where today our admins are split between LCS and PPAC. So that's clearly an opportunity for us to make things easy for our admins from a environment and application lifecycle management perspective. But there are also other administrators who are application administrators, right? There are F&O application administrators, and there are sales or Dataverse side of administrators who have to manage the application behavior. As an example, um, you know, security configuration and such, which is completely disconnected today, two different ways of doing things. Is there an opportunity for us to bring these experiences also together so that not just the system administrators, the environment administrators, but also the application administrators, they also have a unified experience. So that is what One Admin is all about, and we will learn more as we go through the session today. And last but not the least is the actual business user who eventually goes and uses the system to perform their day-to-day tasks as part of the business process itself. So our end goal is to make sure that our users, our business users, are as productive as we can make them productive, so that they are able to focus their brain power and their time to actually do their actual work and not spend time in trying to understand the different experiences. Because this time I'm in F&O, and in order to complete my job, I have to go into sales or marketing or field service, which is a completely different experience. So there is a learning curve involved, and there is context switching involved. So if we add all these additional burden that we put on our users, and we do a cumulative sum, I mean, that productivity hit is going to be enormous given the size of the organization. So that is where one user comes in, which is about experiences. and which is about underlying runtime of the platform, which enables these experiences to be possible to come together. And that is a set of opportunities that we should be looking at, and we are looking at, and something that we will learn more as we go through the session. So that is what frames One Dynamics One Platform, which is to make our end users productive and efficient, by personas. So that's how we should be framing to our customers also, because that way we believe it's going to be easy for them to also understand and relate to it. So if we go to the next slide, Rama. So how do we approach convergence? And we have been talking about this for a couple of years now, so nothing has changed here. These are the same set of core principles. And why do we have principles? I mean, the very reason why we have principles is, number one, to make sure that we are consistent in our messaging. In our messaging from a Microsoft perspective, in our messaging from a community perspective, when we all talk to our customers, it should be a consistent language. That's number one. And number two, there has to be some guiding rules, which should help us as in Microsoft and us as in yourself as a ISV or a partner or a solution developer, to actually use a framework to make decisions, which is this the right thing for me to do? Is this One Dynamics One Platform, or is this something else? So there needs to be a framework that should help decision-making process, and that is why we wanted to define a set of principles. So the first principle, or principle number one, is be opportunistic, right? This is not about picking a platform between FNO platform or a Dataverse platform or Power platform. It is about making the best use of the strength of each of the platform and being opportunistic to actually enable a cross-platform integrated scenario out of the box. So this is not an effort to rewrite applications or platform. The ask is not to go and rewrite. The ask is not for Microsoft to go and rewrite applications, right? Because both Microsoft and our community like yourself, we have together invested so much, like maybe billions of dollars in terms of building the assets for our customers over the last 30 years. That cannot be undone. And hence, the opportunity is not to rewrite, but the opportunity is to understand the specific scenarios where we can benefit our customers by bringing these platforms together. Second principle is to recognize and acknowledge that this is a journey. This is not a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year journey. This is probably a 5+ year journey, and we are in the 3rd year of that journey, and there are probably 5 more years to go at least, right? So it is a crawl, walk, run approach, which means you will see incremental progress, and the progress can be slow in some pockets, depending on the complexity of that specific area. So having the right expectation is important, and setting the same expectation with our customers is also important. So it is going to be a crawl, walk, and run approach. Third bullet aligns with the first bullet, which is, new work should align with Power Platform. Meaning, let us not rewrite, but when we are building new capabilities, new features, new scenarios, let's make sure that we understand what is available today, and let's directionally align to that, as opposed to doing the way things have been done because I'm used to it. I know it is easy. I'll just go and do the same way. That is not what we would recommend, and that is not what we are doing internally also. So the yardstick should be same for everyone, and so that our customers in the end should get a consistent experience. That's pretty much is the driving factor here. And last but not the least, X++ investments will continue. There are concerns. There were concerns, where we heard from our community that, does this mean that X++ is going away? No, X++ is not going away. It is one of the tool set in the developer tool bag. That's pretty much it. That's how we should look at it. And more tool sets are being made available. More choices are being made available. And the developer should be using the framework, the decision-making framework that we talked about, to decide which one to use and what is the right technology to use for a specific scenario. X++ will still be the right choice for specific set of scenarios, whereas it may not be the right choice for other scenarios because there are better alternatives available now, aligning to the direction of one Dynamics and one platform. So these are kind of the four principles that we follow internally, and we've been sharing with all of you and the broader community for about a couple of years now. Next slide, come on. So we understood one Dynamics, one platform from a user perspective, from a persona perspective. But if we flip that from a technology stack perspective, this is how we can visualize that how things are going to come together. So I won't go into each and every slice of this slide, but I think the key takeaway from this slide is to recognize, to understand, and to appreciate the fact that convergence is not going to happen in one specific part of the technology stack. The entire stack has to come together, meaning the convergence has to happen from top down of our technology stack. And the technology stack comprises of FNO stack, Dataverse stack, and the broader Power Platform, right? These three things should come together and is coming together for convergence to be successful. And a reflection of that is exactly what we see in this session today, because it is not just me talking about it. I mean, I have my army of team here who is responsible for different slices of this technology stack. So it is a true reflection of the reality, which is it is not just a pocket, but it is actually the entire thing that needs to come together. So next slide, Rama. Yeah. So with that, I hope the context, the principles, the spirit of what One Dynamics One Platform is was clear. If not, we'll be happy to take questions on chat and later as well, and I'll be here to answer the questions. So with that, we can get into our deep dives for each specific areas. So Lane, you want to take on?
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for having us. So with that, I think we can switch to the next slide, which has a graphic that I think has gotten some decent airtime here in the last few months. We had a cloud blog that went out around our admin convergence efforts. And it really kind of kicked off, I think, with the community to say like, hey, we are moving from LCS to the Power Platform Admin Center. And as part of that, there's a really big conceptual change when it comes to F&O. I'm guilty of this. I've always considered, F&O an environment. I talk about my F&O prod, my F&O sandbox, my F&O developer environment. Going forward, F&O isn't an environment. We should really think about F&O as an application. And if you look at things from the Power Platform admin perspective, a given environment within Power Platform Admin Center can have multiple Dynamics applications. And so you can have sales, you can have field service, you can have marketing, you can have 10 Power Apps, you can have multiple different flows. All of those things live within the context of one environment with one environment ID, and it all lives within one admin center, which is the Power Platform Admin Center. Excuse me. And so that's where we really want to get to when it comes to F&O management for our admins, is moving things into one place. We've gotten a lot of feedback over the years, especially as we start to tie more and more things to Dataverse with Power Platform integration, with customer managed keys, with microservices and add-ins, planning optimization, finance insights, and so forth. The more that we have that's requiring Dataverse, the more in the short term, the more challenge that gives our admins, our customer admins, right? Because now you have multiple different environments, but they're kind of connected in a way like they should be associated. Like I have two prods, I have two sandboxes, they're supposed to be related to each other, but you have to back them up separately. You have to restore them separately. You have to kind of manage them separately. They have different, user roles and profiles and so forth. And so this disparate pain, we've heard loud and clear, and want to solve that by moving everything into the same place. And so long-term, finance operations will not be thought of as a whole environment, but just as an application atop of Dataverse. And so as we look at the ecosystem, we already have, a rich PowerShell community. We have Power Platform API, which is another space that I own that's trying to essentially bridge the gap across Flow and Power Apps and Dataverse and Dynamics 365 APIs, so that we have really one API surface for customers to use, so that you can use that to provision an environment with ERP, with customer engagement, with marketing, or any other apps that you choose, and essentially have like a wholly orchestrated CI/CD pipeline across all of your apps, across all dynamics in one place. And so that's kind of the nirvana. That's where we're going. And so if we can switch to the next slide, I think we're just going to jump right into a demo. And so with that, if I may, I will steal the presentation here just briefly. And we'll jump into the browser. If someone could please just give me a quick audible that you can see.
Yes, we can see your
Here. Okay, perfect. All right, thank you so much. So with this, we're just going to assume that you haven't gone down the path of trying out any of our new deployment capabilities within PBAC or Power Platform Admin Center. And so with that, if you go to Microsoft Bing, you can look up project operations trials. And one of the first things that you can find is this admins trials documentation. And project operations is a particular Dynamics application that requires Dataverse in several instances. And so this was one of the first, like it just made a lot of sense for us to invest in this first. And so what we did was we have some documentation. In here, you can actually sign up for a preview trial. This gives you ability to deploy Dynamics 365 project operations for, I believe, 30 days, and you can extend that a couple of times. I'm already logged in as my own personal tenant here, so I'm not going to purchase this for $0 because I've already done so. Excuse me. But after you purchase it, and actually, if you were to continue to read those documentations, you would see that you get landed here in the Power Platform Admin Center. And specifically for project operations, because they have a couple of different ways in which they provision their app. They have kind of a questionnaire. And so you can answer some yes, no questions in terms of how you're going to use the system. And ultimately, it's going to give you some kind of a recommendation. Do you want to get the light deployment? The light deployment is purely a Dataverse-based project operations deployment. So there's no ERP system. This one up here for non-stocked is fully F&O ERP with Dataverse. And then the last one here is kind of primarily ERP, less Dataverse, but it does still have Dataverse behind the scenes, but it's less dual write focused, if you will. So we'll go ahead and say, like, let's just go ahead and give it the full system. We'll go ahead and say start, and this will start the provisioning process. And again, this is going to create a new environment within Power Platform Admin Center that has Dataverse, it has finance and operations, it has dual write, it has virtual entities, it has all of those things combined. I see I have an error here about my tenant, unfortunately lacking the entitlement. Maybe it's because I've already deployed too many today. So I'll switch to the next tab. And this is the Power Platform Admin Center. Again, this is the LCS for those of you who haven't gone to this place before. This is the LCS for Dataverse and the other Dynamics 365 applications. If you go to the Environments tab, you can actually see I've already provisioned a project operations environment here earlier. And so with that, I can go ahead and look at it. I can see this is kind of the environment details page, if you will, very similar to LCS. I can see my environment URL. I can see where this environment was deployed. I can see actually this environment is special because it has two URLs. It has one for Dataverse and it has one for finance and operations, which is to say that this is a combined, this is a unified environment. It has an ERP, it has a CRM, it has one data platform beneath that, which is Dataverse. And so I'll go ahead and open up the Dynamics 365 instance here. And this is, again, going to open up F&O just as you would expect. I can actually go ahead and go to the data management workspace. And I should see that if I go to dual write, things like dual write are already pre-configured, pre-turned on, pre-integrated. There's no question about, hey, for this F&O instance, which Dataverse do you want to connect to? Or for this Dataverse, which F&O do you want to connect to? Again, it's two halves of a whole. We already have one environment. We have one environment ID. It's all managed within Power Platform Admin Center. And again, it's pre-configured for dual write. I can actually now just go ahead and, kind of look up in my example project operations. I can find all of the different entities that are tagged with that, and I can start turning them on from day one. So I didn't have to like do any of that setup. And from an admin perspective, this just really like speeds up like how quickly it is to kind of get these environments going. And so this is how we envision the management experience, not only for trial environments, but also eventually for sandbox and production environments as well in the admin center. As I mentioned, project operations kind of where we started. You can certainly, after you buy for $0, that project operations trial, you can go to the new button. You can switch your environment type to trial, give your environment a name, and you can just go ahead and manually configure it this way as well. And you'll see that there were those different project operations, kind of the questionnaire. There's the non-stocked, the light, and the stocked as well. So you can kind of pick between those. You will start to see finance, supply chain, and commerce options showing up here as well as trials. Those should be available around October, somewhere between October and November. And so from there, essentially, you'll see the ability to deploy not only the base application, which is finance or supply chain or project operations, but also the add-ins capability. So like planning optimization and finance insights and export to Azure Data Lake, all of those different add-ins capabilities that have only been available in Sandbox Tier 2 or above in LCS. We're making everything available in Power Platform Admin Center from a trial environment, which is free, all the way up through Sandbox and production going forward. And everything is built atop Dataverse that way. So that's kind of our quick kind of flyby demo here. I will relinquish my screen and we can go back to the slides. Looking forward to any questions that you have along the way for this. In the chat, happy to answer those. I think the next slide that I have is just a brief, I believe it's just a brief review of some things that we've shipped. Yes, yeah, exactly. So I think this just kind of shows some things that we've had on the radar for some time. You've seen some of this on Yammer, you've seen some of this on the blogs, certainly on the release notes as well. So a few of these, as I mentioned, the ability for linking an LCS environment to an existing Power Platform environment. We've shipped that recently. It's part of our what we call link milestone. Also, you're going to start to see your existing F&O environment capacity within PPAC as well. And so you can see for my sandbox, for my production environment, how much database am I using versus how much I'm entitled to. Am I using 50% of my database? Am I using 100% or more than 100% and so forth? So you'll start to see that light up here shortly as well. It's kind of rolling out in private preview and going into public preview here soon. And then there's a few other things here along the way that we're targeting for October and beyond. So really excited for all of your feedback and everybody's participation along the way. We're just really excited to, really combine everything into the Power Platform Admin Center and make our admins' lives a little bit easier. So, so with that, I will let us move on. But any questions you have around one admin, just add them to the chat and I'll be here to answer them. So thank you.
Hey, Lane, I got a few questions if you don't mind, please.
Absolutely, fire away.
So, like, what's the transition strategy from Microsoft? What's going to happen with existing customers who are using FO environments, sandbox environments? And will Microsoft start supporting some sort of a template, and Microsoft strategy will be there in order to transit? And database will always remain the SQL database, so-called Azure SQL database. It's not going to be a Dataverse database. It's just the UI or creation of the environments. This is going to be changed from taking from LCS to admin center, right?
Yeah, so there's you're asking kind of the $1 million question, I think.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of different aspects to that. From an admin specific perspective, we are trying to make it such that you can manage the environment in one place. And so if I have a sandbox or a production environment and it has F&O and it has Dataverse, underneath the covers, it certainly might have multiple databases. Like there could certainly be an AXDB and a Dataverse DB, and those could be separate things. But when you click the copy and the backup and the delete, it should orchestrate across all of it seamlessly. And as the admin, as the customer, you shouldn't have to really worry like, oh, this app, called F&O has a separate DB and like I have to manage, so we want to kind of like make that easier to work with from an admin perspective. But, long term, like, are they going to be separate databases? Are they not? Like, those are all kind of things that are up in the air right now. And so, don't necessarily want to, paint us into a corner, but I think there is a lot of opportunity for convergence, even at the schema level, to say like, hey, can we move like F&O and Dataverse together? So even that long term may not be a separate thing; it might be a unified thing. So hopefully, I helped answer your question.
Yeah. No, that's it. Thank you. Because nowadays customers are hearing about this one dynamics, so they are raising these questions. I'm sure like you might not have all the answers right now. It's specifically they are asking about licensing, how the licensing is gonna work. Is there any roadmap path or maybe a sort of a document link which Microsoft provide to us saying, okay, we are working on a licensing strategy, and definitely it will be a part of the preview and the public preview later on, so which we can share with the customers to say, okay, this is coming from Microsoft, and when something is coming from Microsoft, this has the more authority or sort of a goodwill there, so it's sharing with the customers.
Yeah, plus one to that. In all of our private previews that we're working towards, I know we haven't kind of released any of these yet for some of the newer capabilities beyond just trials. And I know trials are free. So like while I'm on the trial topic, definitely go sign up for trials, sign up for ProJobs, sign up for the finance and supply chain trials when those come out here in a couple of months. And give us your feedback, because again, those are free. Like there's no like licensing guide that you have to dissect and figure out how many licenses do I have to buy and anything. It's just, hey, go sign up for this. You get it for 30 days. You can extend it a couple of times to get it, I think, 60, 90 days. And then just try it out and let us know if it's working well. So that would be super valuable. And then going forward, any of the private previews that we have, they're always going to be bound by kind of our future state, which is like, are you within your capacity constraints? Are you, doing well with your licenses? Any customers that are, already using like 300% of what they purchased, kind of want to make sure that they true up before that they participate in some of the go forward, private preview programs and strategies. So again, it's worth noting. And again, we are making that visibility in terms of where you are of your utilization free and visible within Power Platform Admin Center for F&O customers. So even if you have an LCS instance, you can go to the Power Platform Admin Center and see like, hey, I'm 75% of my utilization. So at that point, you're good to go in terms of preview program.
Quick time check.
Thank you.
So if you have any question, please type in the chat window and Lane would be able to answer. Over to you, Jared.
All right, thanks, Rama. In this next section, we're going to talk about the user experience and bringing together the end user experience between finance and operations and the Power Platform by joining together data and business logic. Can we hop to the next slide, Rama? So this, first, looking at connecting data, the technologies that we're looking at here, these aren't new technologies in finance and operations or Dataverse, in the One Dynamics, One Platform effort. You may have seen these before, but we want to continue to talk about these because these will be the strategy going forward. They will continue to be, and we continue to make investments in these areas to improve the experiences. And so as we go out and talk in the community and evangelize these technologies, we want to make sure there's an understanding of how they can be used so that customers can continue to take these up and use them in additional scenarios and in bringing together their applications between finance and operations and the Power Platform. So these first two are looking at connecting data, and the two primary methods that we use for connecting data between the two platforms. The first is dual write. And as the name indicates, what we're doing is writing data into two places. So when a record is written into one platform, it's in real time. This tightly coupled real-time bidirectional sync synchronizes that record physically into the other database. So if I create a purchase order in finance and operations, that record can be synchronized in real time into Dataverse. Customer records, vendor records, whatever needs to stay in sync, those operations that happen of reading, writing, deleting, updating, happen in real time against both the databases. The second is virtual tables. And this is a little bit different. The primary difference here is that the data doesn't physically reside in Dataverse. It's exposed virtually through a virtual table in Dataverse. So you can interact with it as if it were a native table in Dataverse, but the data physically resides and is connected to in the finance and operations database. So that's the key differentiator there. The key thing that needs to be considered when you're wondering which one should I use for integrating my data. Should I be using dual write or should I be using virtual tables? It depends on whether or not the data needs to physically sit in Dataverse. If it doesn't, use virtual tables. If it does, for example, if you need to have customer updates that apply in both finance and operations and also need to be synchronized in real time to a sales application, that might be something that you need to physically sitting in Dataverse. But if that's not the case, then use virtual tables. So these are the two technologies for connecting data between the two platforms. The next section is talking about business logic. That we have two types of events that enable us to synchronize logic between the two platforms. The two types of these events that we're talking about are data events and business events. Data events, these are your cut operations, your create, update, and delete operations. At any time any of those happen against a finance and operations table, if you have that virtual table enabled in Dataverse, that those cut operations are also available in Dataverse. And we can send out a signal to our service endpoint or into Dataverse to a Power Automate flow. Whatever endpoint needs to know about that event happening, we can send out that signal, that message from that data event occurring in finance and operations or Dataverse. The second type is differentiated in that a business event is based in code. It's based in business logic. That it follows an activity that is high value of interest to us to understand that activity happened within the application. So something like a business or a purchase invoice is posted, or a payment is approved, or a collection letter is sent, where there's an activity that a user is performing, that there may be another application that wants to know that activity happened. The business event then is the signal, the message that activity happened, that other applications and platforms can listen to understand that happened within your finance and operations application. So where these become valuable is we're taking that business logic from finance and operations and understanding that event occurred in finance and operations and sending that signal through Microsoft Dataverse. So when the Power Platform integration is enabled, all of the business events, the entire business events catalog, and all of the data events for all virtual tables that are enabled in that finance and operations environment are synchronized into the Power Platform, into Dataverse. That makes them available for use with the native Dataverse connectors and Power Automate for creating a flow, or any of the pro dev experiences that you would have with the Power Platform add-in in Visual Studio to build plugins that integrate that business logic across platforms and across applications, bringing those experiences closer together. So on the next slide, we have just a quick demo that highlights how these technologies can be used to bring those experiences together. And something to note as you're watching this brief demo is that you'll notice that this is all happening within the Power Platform, that is utilizing data and business logic from finance and operations without the need to go into the finance and operations application because of that tight integration between the two platforms. Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations continues to come closer together with the Power Platform. Finance and Operations, business events, and data events are automatically enabled in Microsoft Dataverse, enabling streamlined business processes. In this example, Contoso is a manufacturing company that uses customer engagement for their front office, finance and operations for their back office, and the Power Platform to tie it all together. ReliCloud, a potential customer, comes to Contoso's online portal and reviews the product list and decides to begin onboarding as a potential reseller. In the reseller registration form, they provide some basic information and submit their request to become a reseller of Contoso's products. When the submission completes successfully, we can open the CRM hub and see that ReliCloud is now added as a new potential account. When the new record is created, the data event of creating the new account record triggers some business logic through a Power Automate flow for Contoso to initiate onboarding the new reseller. First, if we switch over to Outlook, we see that a confirmation email is sent to ReliCloud letting them know that Contoso's onboarding team will be connecting with them shortly. In Teams, we see a message is posted letting the Contoso team know they can begin onboarding the new reseller. For onboarding, there's a lot more detail that we'll need to add after negotiations with the customer. Selecting the link opens a form where we can enter additional information after negotiations with ReliCloud. Your processes are likely more complex than this, but in this simplified example, we'll enter a credit limit and save. We can then create an invoice for this customer. Let's create an invoice by entering a document amount, entering a quantity for services rendered, and post. Posting the free text invoice will trigger processes in the back office application to ensure all account records and financials are updated correctly. The posting business event will also trigger other business processes. In Teams, we've created a message so those who need to know stay informed. Additionally, if we navigate back to our CRM hub, we see that ReliCloud previously had 0 invoices. Through a plugin created using the Power Platform Tools add-in, we're able to trigger an update to the record on the posting business event. When we refresh, we see that the invoice count has been incremented by 1. Bringing finance and operations business events and data events into the Power Platform enables you to streamline and optimize your business processes. All right, so just a quick walkthrough to highlight where the technologies were used in this demo. So at the beginning, we had a Power Apps portal or Power Pages portal that was built, and it was built using data from virtual tables, that it was connecting and pulling all of that information directly from finance and operations and displaying it in a Power Apps portal, and then writing that data back into finance and operations when that new customer record was created. When that customer record was created, using dual write, we synchronized that back into Dataverse so that it could be used across other applications. And then data events, what that data event of the newly created record in the Power Platform triggered that flow that sent out the email message and sent out the Teams message so that we could trigger that additional business logic or other activities that we want to have happen when those records are created. In that next step, we had a Power App that was created so that we could do that our onboarding team uses to do negotiations with ReliCloud, our customer. All of that data is reading and writing directly from finance and operations using virtual tables. And when those new records are created, we're going back and making sure that those are synchronized into Dataverse using dual write so that data can be used across other applications. And then finally, when we create that invoice and we post that invoice, that free text invoice posted business event is something that we're listening to, that we have registered a plugin against that free text invoice posted business event so that we can trigger additional business logic. In this case, it was just a simple update for a custom field that we had added to a form, but it's logic that we have a lot of flexibility in the development experience because we have access to that business logic coming from other applications when that activity occurs in finance and operations. So bringing together the technologies makes it really easy to write these applications and write these experiences for end users that cross the platforms and applications. So Ram, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks, Jared, and thanks, Lane. So this section is about the first-party solutions Microsoft has shipped primarily on dual write. And this covers most of the common concepts that spans between the sales application and the finance and operations applications. Now, as Jared mentioned, dual right, it's a tight coupling between the front office customer engagement apps and the back office finance and operations applications. Now, this is the platform aspect of dual right. But when it comes to the application aspect, which is set of solutions that are available in our app source, which are can you can download it from the app source, and that provides an application orchestration um, for the common concepts that exist between the FNO and CE, primarily like customers, vendors, contacts, products, quotations, orders, invoice, purchase orders, and whatnot, right? So that actually provides a one user experience where if a customer has opened the same customer record in the front office as well as there is a cost accountant who has opened the same record on the back office. Now the changes that are happening to that record on the front office are visible to the back office user, as well as the back office changes made by the back office user. If the front office user is allowed to see those changes, then of course those changes will appear on the front office record. So that kind of a real-time experience is what dual right first party solutions provide to the end users firsthand. And dual right as a platform is extensible, as well as the applications are extensible. So customers can go ahead and build their own verticals or cross solutions, or even if there are some solutions or concepts that are not covered, they can go ahead and build those in a custom way. So that said, when you install the dual right application orchestration solutions from the app source and install it in the Dataverse environment, you will see that the data schema, the data model schema has been expanded, because even though the concepts are common between FNO and CE apps, the data models are different. And this schema expansion brings a conceptual parity between these two applications, and that facilitates the orchestration, end-to-end orchestrations between these two applications. Now, on the right-hand side, what you see is an example of the party and global address book concept that we have harmonized out of the box. And if you are a CE user, you know that there are some restrictions or limitations on a customer record or a vendor record or a contact record, where a customer record cannot have more than two addresses, unless you go to the address book and link it separately and whatnot. And similarly, if you're accessing a contact record at a stretch, you can see only three addresses, right? And also there is no facilitation of, hey, I can classify the record, the address as a business address, or a invoice address, or a delivery address, or a one-time address. So that kind of classifications are not possible. And also there are no you cannot separate a customer profile, like a hey generic profile, or hey, this is my financial profile that which I want to use it for specific transaction against a specific legal entity, right? So that kind of separations are not possible. But if you see FNO, those concepts are already available. Now this party and global address book solution that is coming from Microsoft is actually bringing those concepts into the CE world by expanding this data model. And it also provides those facilities for the CE front office users. Okay, so along with that, there are some other limitations, like, hey, an account cannot be associated with more than one contact, right? So those kind of restrictions are also broken, and you will see the experience that you see in FNO. Similar experience is available for the front office applications. Okay, so this is what is available from Microsoft, and this solution is primarily based on dual right. Of course, you can create similar behavior using the virtual entity business events concept along with dual right. So you can mix and match, like how Jared showed you the demo, right? So you can do a mix and match of technologies to achieve your own end-to-end business processes, because we believe that every customer is unique in itself. Their business processes are unique, and so the capabilities Microsoft is providing are all cross platform capabilities or cross application capabilities, and you may require some sort of customization on top of it to cater to your business processes, right? So that's the overall idea. That said, we would like to venture into the roadmap. So some of you might be eagerly waiting to get to this list. Jared?
Yeah. So actually, Ram, I'm going to start at the bottom since we go in the order in which we presented the technologies, starting with virtual tables. Um, so these are some of the enhancements that we have coming up in the next couple of, or the next release for virtual tables that we're targeting. So the first one is attachment support for virtual entities as base 64. This has been a common request that, for example, if you're trying to write an attachment into finance and operations through a virtual entity, it hasn't been possible up to this point. Those have been read only. So being able to write those as base 64 strings is an enhancement that's been asked for quite a bit. The next one is performance enhancements that with virtual tables, up to this point, there has been a little bit of overhead on performance. And so to enable that additional scale of integrations with virtual tables, we'll be focusing on improving the performance and speed at which those the entities respond between the two applications. For business events, looking at enabling business events for process insights. So business events, that being able to use those as data points within an end-to-end business process enables you to do analysis on top of those business processes. And process insights within the Power Platform gives you that opportunity to look at those end-to-end business processes with those business events. So we'll be enabling that by having those in managed data lake, so to make them available for that and analytics with process insights. And then another one that's been commonly asked for is legal entity filters on data events and business events. That you don't necessarily want to be notified every time an event happens in any legal entity. Sometimes it's just specific legal entities that you care about. So we'll be adding those filters or enabling those filters so you can define in which legal entities you want to be notified when that event occurs. Jumping up to the top, before Rama jumps back in with dual rights, one transaction is one that we're also looking into or actively working on at this point to enable transactional consistency between finance and operations and Dataverse when you're using the iOrganization service. So if you're coding in X++ and coding an integration between the two platforms, today there isn't that transactional consistency. It's you can invoke the iOrganization service, and that can happen within a transaction, but there isn't that guarantee that it will happen with that transactional consistency. So we're bringing those together by binding anything that happens within a transaction on either side to the same transaction. So it's within the same session, passing a session binding token for that transaction that's being called between the platforms, so that they're consistently bound. So if, for example, an error occurs and the transaction needs to be rolled back on one side, it's rolled back on both sides, and you can maintain that consistency and make sure that that you have accurate and valid data between the two platforms. So that's something that is coming, and we're actively working on that experience to make sure that the code you're writing is consistent between the applications.
Okay, so the next one is the dual right V2 roadmap. So since we are running out of time, I'm going to quickly parse through this. So the first one is the ability to reset the dual right connection instead of linking and unlinking. So today, if the initial sync is taking some time to process, people go nervous and they start to unlink the environments and relink the environments. In order to avoid that mistake or that step, we are going to introduce a step called reset dual right connection. And this is going to establish or restore the connection that you have in LCS to your dual right environment. So if there are any changes that needs to happen, you have to go to LCS and re-establish the connection. Okay, so this step will avoid you from linking the wrong Dataverse environment to the given FNO instance. Okay, so because we are seeing a lot of mistakes happening during the linking and unlinking process, and this reset connection step will avoid that mistake. Okay, and then dual right is going to be available in few more regions, and these regions have been asked many times, and we are going to do this in this semester. And then the next one is improve the performance of dual write for both initial sync as well as live sync. And this is something that, we do see some areas where we can improve the performance, and we'll be focusing on it. And then we are also going to provide you the end-to-end audit trail for tracking the dual write data sync payload. Today, the audit, since audit trails are existing for Dataverse and FNO separately, the end-to-end visibility is missing. So this is going to bring the end-to-end visibility, which will also establish, make sure you don't have reliability issues or concerns with dual write. And the next one is we are going to focus on the automated ALM for the dual write solution deployment. So today you are clicking 5 steps one after another, or running the 5 steps one after another. But this is going to automate it, and as a result, we may need to expose more metadata like versioning, or integration keys and whatnot. We will be exposing that metadata to make this happen. Okay. And the next one is we are going to improve the initial sync functionality by reducing the manual steps. So if you're already using dual write, hey, you have to go through the self-referencing, or there is a restriction on number of lookups and whatnot. So those things will be addressed here. The next one is we are going to focus on the user experience for dual write. You don't need to go back and forth in order to configure a map. You'll have all the information within the same screen. And then the next one is the async operation for dual write. So we do see that you are executing async operations on FNO side and trying to sync it to Dataverse in real time. But this async operation capability of dual write will address those scenarios. So that said, I will hand off to Jason to cover the one user experience scenarios.
All right, thanks, Rama. So you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So we're going to switch gears a little bit and start talking about the actual user interfaces. So you can see from kind of the Power Apps FNO side, there's really 3 different surfaces that we're talking about. So model-driven apps, Canvas apps, FNO apps, 3 different tool sets. As Sunil talked about, one of our principles is to not make you rewrite anything that you have existing. So regardless of where you built your UI, one of our goals is to let you try to use these experiences in whichever app that you're building. So we want to actually, Rama, if you will, I think there's one. Yep. So there's kind of 2 aims here. So the first is that we want to let you mix and match these experiences. So again, take an FNO app, put it in model driven or Canvas, take one of those other ones, stick them into FNO. So the first thing is kind of separate from FNO. There's been an ongoing effort for the last few years to start to merge model driven and Canvas apps together already. So that's been going on through a concept called custom pages. And so really what this does is it gives developers or makers the ability to put pages into model-driven apps that use the Canvas technology. So you can start to build pixel perfect WYSIWYG type UI experiences inside of model-driven apps. So we're not going to really go into what custom pages is in this, because we're going to focus more on the FNO side. But there are documentation, there's blogs if you're interested in that concept. But instead, what I'm going to talk about in a few minutes is kind of the mixing and matching in terms of FNO. You can go back just for a minute, Rama. Can you go back a slide? Yep, thanks. And then the second thing that we're going to talk about after we look at kind of the mixing and matching is consistency. So if you look at these screens, you can obviously see they look vastly different from each other. So we want to start trying to figure out ways that we can start moving all these experiences towards one cohesive visual. And it won't look like any of these right now. There's kind of a new direction, so we want to look like the rest of Microsoft. We'll talk about that in a few minutes as well. So now we can go forward one slide. So in terms of mixing and matching with FNO, there are things that you can already do in this space. So in FNO, you can already embed Canvas apps into FNO. So the screen on the left, you can see that someone has added this new product setup Canvas app into a section of a workspace. The one on the right is the vendor automation, invoice automation, I'm sorry, that's also embedded into workspace as a full pivot tab. This can be done through personalization. This can be done through the development experience with the Power Apps host control. The nice thing about doing this through personalization is that with the saved use capability, you can add this, you can publish this to the users that really need it, and kind of deploy this out to your environment as you want. The one nice thing about the Power Apps integration here is that you can select a field of context to pass to this Power App to kind of give it some input. We also pass the current legal entity, so you do get some input into initializing your Power App. If we go on to the next slide. So in addition to Canvas apps, you can also embed model-driven apps. So there's a new feature in F&O called full page apps. It's becoming mandatory with the October release. And the feature is basically to allow you to embed a website, but that can be a model-driven app. There are URL parameters you can put in to suppress the top and left nav, so you get a full model-driven app experience inside of F&O. There's a link to that Tech Talk series. You can go that we do a full hour on model-driven apps. We do a full hour on Canvas apps if you want more examples and more information on this. But this is also something that you can do today in F&O. So we'll go forward one more. So where we want to go now is to make it easier to embed F&O. So go the other direction, take F&O and stick it in model-driven apps. There should be maybe one more, Rama. I think there's a picture. Yep. So this is an early picture of a real scenario. So in customer service, there are agents that are talking to customers, and they need to be able to fulfill some order. Before, they would have to open up two browsers, one with the CE app and one with F&O to go to this customer service page. And so what they've done is they've actually embedded the page that the F&O or the users needed from F&O directly into CE. There is a URL parameter here where you can suppress the top and left nav as well, which isn't shown in this picture, but that makes it look a lot cleaner as well. So you can do this today through kind of web resources. We don't really recommend that yet because the LM story isn't great, but we'll be coming out with a kind of a PCF control to make this much easier. Hopefully it should be in next year sometime. And then one more slide for me. So that's about mixing and matching. And so I don't have any visuals for consistent experiences. We're a little bit too early for what that's going to look like, but I just want to talk for a few minutes about what our principles are going to be. So one of those is to be able to reuse your controls and components. So if you looked across those model-driven Canvas F&O, there are several different control sets that are being used across those technologies. And we want to get to the point where we're reusing the same components in all of those places. Not only is that kind of an engineering efficiency on our side, but that's hugely useful for users because everything looks, interacts, feels the same as you move from product to product, and it reduces the barrier for users to learn different products. And the other thing that we want to do, which I kind of alluded to earlier, is move everything towards the same direction visually. And so that's alignment with Microsoft Fluent, which is kind of Microsoft's design language. So this is going to be across the board. So forms, controls, everything is going to start getting the same Fluent styling in all of those areas, so that it doesn't matter if you embed one and the other, they're all going to look the same. And on top of that, we're going to doing a theming system where it doesn't matter if you've F&O embedded in a model-driven app and that model-driven app's embedded in Teams, everything will kind of theme and look like you're in Teams. Or if you're on a phone, it'll look like you're on the phone. So these things are going to help us to be very consistent across the board. I don't have dates for you yet, but I will just say watch release plans. There will be things that are coming out in the upcoming semesters with details about when these things are coming. And I will be available on the chat to answer questions, and I think I will pass it over to Gianluca for the one developer.
Yes, Jason. And thank you for staying up late, by the way.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so let's talk about the one developer that generally tops it off. And by now, when we give this talk, our audience are really, really excited, and they're starting to chomp at the bit and say, okay, how can we play with it? What is going to happen? Because we need developer tools to make sure that you can leverage all this goodness. And I want to give you a sneak peek at where we're going. I will start by saying that not a lot of what we are doing right now is actually exactly demoable stuff, because the UX will stay the same. As we said at the beginning, X++ is not going away. The Visual Studio extensions will keep working the same way in terms of the front end. However, there will be big changes in the back end. And this is because if we look at how the development, the X++ development works today for a unified experience, well, this is where the model that we have today starts to show its limits. So the idea that you either have your local VM based on the VHD that you downloaded from LCS, and it's got the whole 9 yards of SQL, FNO runtime, IIS, and it's this kind of different, very similar, but yes, somewhat different from the cloud version. It's already creating some issues on the pure FNO side. When you add Dataverse to the mix and you start talking about converged applications, let's just say that even the experience of setting up this unified environment, it's nowhere near where we want it to be. It is possible. We have lots of first party and third party. We have partners that are doing it all the time, leveraging all the goodness of dual write, virtual tables, business events, etc., etc. But we need to do better, especially if we want to make sure that these experiences become mainstream, become the way to operate with FNO. So if we go to the second slide, this is the way that we are thinking about it. And the idea is to take the FNO development model and fast forward it by a decade or more and turn it into a cloud-based development where you don't necessarily need to have a local instance of FNO on your machine, but you're actually working against a remote instance that will be provisioned. The ones that Lane has been showing to you in the one admin, well, this is the companion tool. This is the way that you are developing today for Azure, for Dataverse, where you open your own Visual Studio. You don't need a VM. It's your own Visual Studio. And you give it a connection string. And you say, okay, well, I want to go and develop things against this instance. And this instance will be an instance that contains Dataverse, that contains FNO, all the Power Platform. Everything will be pre-wired for you. Now, the other part of it will be that we are going to bring together the two Visual Studio tools that we have today. One is the Power Platform tools for Visual Studio, and the other one is the FNO extension. We are going to eventually merge them into one. And the idea here is that as we deliver more and more of these building blocks for one admin, for one user, for one platform, etc., the developer tools will need to be and stay up to date to make sure that you can always leverage those features and functionalities. We are also thinking about, for those of you who are still looking at the FNO part and only FNO, we are looking also for some alternative on your local development. But again, we are primarily targeting these online environments, which, as Lane mentioned before, will be part of your Power Platform entitlement. So you will be able to spin up as many as your capacity will allow. And this also, we believe, is going to impact in a very positive way performance of the whole developer experience, because you won't have to run heavy processes like FNO on your local machine only to do development. On top of that, there will be companion tools. I don't know if you've seen the PAC CLI, the Power Automate command line interface is becoming richer and richer. Right now, if you actually go and dig into the hidden options, into the ones that are kind of behind feature flags, you can enable a feature to enable unified packaging, which is a way where you can create a single package that is a package of packages that contains both Dataverse solutions and FNO modules. You put them in the same container, you tell the PAC CLI to deploy them, And we take care of that against converged environments where we are going to install the FNO part on FNO and the Dataverse solutions on the Dataverse platform. So this is to say that the development tools are going to be following very closely this effort and ensure that we will be able to enable every single feature that comes out of it. The one big milestone will be moving to this new architecture. This is the biggest change that is being in the works. And we are really looking for any type of feedback to better understand how we can manage this change. What could be the ripple effects, if any? With that in mind, I think that I am done with my content, but if there are any questions, more than happy to. Oh yeah, I mentioned the Power Platform command line. And of course, we didn't talk about the ALM part, but this is going to be another big part of it because we have a very solid story with the ALM on FNO, and we are not touching it. And what we are doing right now is building an ALM story. And if you're following the Power Platform blogs and all the pre-announcement, what we mentioned at Build, et cetera, the ALM story on Dataverse and the Power Platform is becoming better and better. So we are going to unify them both. I mean, I think that maybe the parting thought is going to be again about X++ and where it's going. It's still evolving. We are investing on it. We are investing on it heavily. I will also venture to say that at this point, when we think about these converged environments where we have front of the house developers that need to integrate with back of the house and back of the house developers that need to integrate with the front of the house, the FNO part of it, the FNO crew, has a bit of a leg up because the Dataverse and Power Platform part is relatively easy to understand and digest. So learning about the Dataverse part and how to integrate with that is certainly a good skill to think about. But all the investment, everything that you have done in creating complex workflows and managing complex data models, et cetera, on the back end, that is not going away. That is going to continue being a huge value. And please keep us honest and give us all the feedback that we can in terms of how we can evolve X++, how we can evolve the programming model on the FNO side. We are here to support that. And with that, I think I should probably give it back to Sunil to lead us into the Q&A part, although I saw that there's been a lot of questions in the chat as well.
Yeah, thank you, Janico. Thank you, everyone. I think, yes, I think the chat has been quite active. But if there are any questions somebody wants to ask, please unmute and ask, and we are here to answer.
I see as I'm spotting a couple in the chat, work offline, write X++ code. Yes, you can work offline for that matter. You will be able to actually write and build locally. You won't be able to deploy it unless you're online. And this is consistent with what you're seeing today with the way you develop for Dataverse, the way you develop for Logic Apps, the way you develop for Azure or any cloud service for that matter. But you will still be able to do all the local development.
So in that case of working offline, so we will have a complete baseline code sitting into our own machines, all the model files,
Yeah.
all the files in your service directory, or the concept of Microsoft was maybe a few years ago, we will just have our own extensions, not having the big model sitting into your own machine, just the extension part, and then build the code on that one. So what's the plan going forward now?
So the simple way to possibly explaining it is that right now what you have is the full runtime. So you have all the source code, all the libraries, and everything that is required to also run it. We are moving towards a model where you are getting the libraries, you are getting the SDK. So you will still be able to code against the platform, but it will be, again, more likely instead of having fno.xc, you have fno.dll if you want. This is a very simplistic way of putting it, but
Okay.
that's where we are trying to go.
So just one burning question here. Will that take away the ability to look at the standard X++ code in future? Like currently, if we have to develop something, we find any similar behavior in standard application and we can borrow some code patterns. Is that something which will get converted into a DLL or a NuGet package going forward, and we will just have to reference
No,
it?
again, yeah, that's the problem with oversimplification. No, the source code access is not. We are not taking that feature away. You will be able to see the source, debug, step into, etc., etc. So
And
you
do
will
we
be getting all
still,
that.
yeah, cool, thanks for that. And will that still need one developer, one environment thing, which we have currently in FNO?
I'm sorry, what is that?
Do we need one environment per developer going forward? Like currently
Not
we do.
so, well, not necessarily to begin with, because I mean, it is conceptually possible to share a target environment. Of course, then you have the problem that you may be clashing against each other, so it may require some discipline. However, I'll go back to the point, and maybe Lane can keep me honest here and go a little bit more in depth. But unlike what you see today, for example, with the cloud-hosted environment, where one developer, one VM, so if you have two developers, it's twice the cost. The way it's going to work with those converged environments is that they're going to be part of your overall Dataverse capacity. So it's up to you whether you take a certain capacity and you split it in one big instance and 5 small instances, or 6 instances that are all the same, et cetera, et cetera. The cost will not change.
Yeah, Janugo's exactly right, and we're kind of still working through like the cost model. And we were trying to make sure that it's as cost efficient as possible, obviously. But when it comes to like a developer environment, if there is somebody working on like, module A, and somebody else is like creating module B and like extending that, and they both extend from App Suite, for example, like there is in theory the ability for two developers to work on the same environment. There might obviously, as Janigo mentioned, like be some like theoretical or like even more like realistic physical challenges in terms of like restarting the AOS and batch services as two different people are building and deploying. So we have to kind of work through those things. But in general, like FNO needs to move to a capacity model similar to Dataverse. We are working with the business planning team and licensing and all of the marketing teams to try and make that a reality. But no formal plans I could share right now. But we would love to make that a much more simplistic story, similar to what Dataverse has, right? Where you can have unlimited sandboxes, unlimited production environments. It doesn't really matter. As long as you can have multiple productions, it doesn't matter, as long as you have capacity to do so. And that's where we would like the FNO to go as long term as well. Yep.
Right. Thanks, Lynn, and thanks to everyone from Microsoft who have joined us today. Guys, if there is any question, please ask now, and we will be starting with the next session with Adil soon. So, but I really appreciate that everyone took out this time, especially on a Friday night, and it's almost 1 a.m. for some people. So, kudos to everyone. Thanks for joining and sharing that knowledge with us. It will really help everyone to align their skill set with the future. And as the platform is evolving, we can also develop these skills and stay in the game. So, thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a
Thank you.
good night.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us. Yeah. Bye.
Okay, cool, guys. So that was one Dynamics, one platform session from Sunil and his team from Microsoft. And the next session we have is from Adil on the best practices from solution architecture perspective. Adil, if you are on the call, and we are happy to take 5 minutes break if guys you want to take a break for 5 minutes and we can reconvene after a few minutes, or like as you feel, Adil. We know it's 5 minutes early than we planned for it. Yeah. Hey.
It's okay.
What time is it there for you, Adi?
I'm actually in Pakistan right now, so traveling closer to you guys. That's okay.
Oh, cool. Good.
I hope I look fresh.
Yeah, you're looking sharp, mate. Always, whenever you are in your country, then you feel so much energetic. Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
people are traveling at this time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you are available, Adil, if you want to start, the floor is all yours, mate. Yeah,
Right.
just yeah.
Good. Let me share my screen so you see the presentation, and then we can get started.
I think it's loading up.
Yep, we can see it now.
Do you see the presentation? Okay, perfect. Yeah, just a quick heads up on the, so I'm working off the mobile internet. So in case if anything goes wrong, I'll be back with the other one, with that, I didn't want to miss this chance to, join the session, celebrate your anniversary for the Indian UG. All right, so all the support for you guys for doing this great work. Good. Great. I hope I do justice by continuing with something, as hopefully, somewhat exciting topic as well. But obviously, we know the one platform on Dynamics Uno it never gets old, no matter how many times we discuss about it, listen to it. So thank you, team, for doing that. What I'll do is for today. So my name is Adil Eddy. For whom you don't know, I'm a senior solution architect working in the Fast Track team at Microsoft. And the topic for today is the solution architecture design pillars. So, and we all know that solution, you can't have a solution without first having the vision. All right, and when you know the answer for what you're looking for, and that is the vision, only then you can find the solution to get you there. But it's not always easy to articulate what you want. I mean, let alone the elements to it or the pillars, right? Of creating a blueprint. We have seen, and I will take this chance to, by the way, I will keep it informal. I'll keep it relaxed. That today's presentation, and if you have any questions as well, if you have any comments, please don't mind, just unmute yourself, ask a question, or type in the chat. I have with me Saurabh as well, from the Fast Track team. Right, so thank you, Saurabh, for being there. He will be taking up some questions as well. He decided to join and support the session and what you guys are doing. So when we talk about and I will also take this opportunity, by the way, like I was saying, to rant a bit, right? Because we learn a lot of things, we see a lot of things in Fast Track, what is going on, and I think it's a good chance for me as well to share all those experiences, what we are seeing when it comes to the solution architecture that is going on, as well as the role of solution architect, right? Some misconceptions as well around that. By the way, the content from this is from our implementation guide, right? So Fast Track is not only joining those Fast Track managed customers and providing guidance, but we are trying to document and make all the knowledge that we have and all the best practices publicly as well. So it's available to all, right? We don't want to restrict it to a certain set of customers or resources or partners. It's for everyone. Right, and then you can find more details in the implementation guide as well. So let's get started. So we all know what architecture is, and when it comes to and I'll give a typical example that we all give. It's when you're building or constructing a building, putting a building structure. We all understand how important a job of architect is. But somehow, when it comes to delivering the software solutions, right, because it's not physical, it somehow feels like the role of architect is not really that important. But that's not the case, right? And let's just compare it with with two different physical examples as well, right? Let's say you are building a house, but this time you're building it for a dog, right? Your pet, and it's a dog house. You know that the risk of failure is low. You know that building it is cheap. You understand that, even if you do a bit of trial and error, that's okay as an approach. But imagine now you are doing the same thing and building something like an opera house, right? A Sydney Opera House in Australia. Would you follow the same trial and error approach like you would do for your pet house? You wouldn't, right? You would actually have all the reasonable amount of roles in place, the architects, the solution architects, the construction workers, or the plumbers, electricians, decorators. And I said solution architect, it would be in that sense, right? You would have those in place. You would have all the right pillars. You would have an explicit design, a well-defined process, right? As well as you would know your tools, and then you would start working on the actual delivery, right? And similar is the case with our solution deliveries that we are doing, be it Dynamics or other applications, right? The Power Platform, or even the non-Microsoft platforms. It is really important to have the solution architecture in place. And coming back to the point that I already made, that it all starts with a vision, right? And we will discuss a lot of things. I will talk about solution architect. So what we have seen as well, that solution architect is obviously there in the programs, in a lot of programs. One of the things that a typical solution architect would do is try to focus on, okay, my job is to design the solution or strategy. Would not worry about the vision, would not worry about the business strategy, would push definitely the methodology to the project manager. And we will come to that point as well, that it's not the responsibility of solely the project manager to work about the methodology, but essentially there's a very key role that you play in the vision as well. And you might not be playing exactly deciding that vision, right? And we will talk about the vision as well, but knowing it, understanding it, right? Knowing not just the solution part of the technology part of it, that this is what we do, right? 80% of the time you see that, okay, solution architect is talking about how am I going to do my data migration? What is the tool that I'm going to use? These are the apps, these are the modules that we are looking into, without actually really talking about what's a vision, right? And yes, you would have different roles. So solution architect, you will have functional consultants, you would have data migration teams to do these specific jobs. But the solution architect is really that person who is responsible for ensuring that the vision is delivered. So how would you do that without knowing that vision, right? So this is super important for you to, as a solution architect, to know that vision, to understand that the requirements are actually coming from that vision. In the end, whatever you do, right, your solution is actually serving up to that vision. So we talk about it, we do it in our fast track reviews as well. We go into that sessions, and when they see that, hey, you are a solution architect, why are you talking about vision? That's the first thing that where start of the conversations as architects with the customer and the partners that goes wrong is, hey, why don't you focus on the solution aspect to it of the things, the technical side of things? How would we do that? How would any architect do that? And you being architects as well, how would you do it without actually knowing the vision? So this is super important, right? Then we talk about the other building blocks, that architecture, as I've written on the right-hand side of the screen as well, that it creates the architecture actually is the picture of a finished product that includes these specifications needed to build it, right? So this is what it is, right? It is the specifications. It's the quality, it's the requirements, it's the dependencies, right? It's everything. So you see that I'm bringing in a lot of things, and it's not just me. It's a role that requires it. Yes, you would have a quality manager, a quality lead in place, but solution architect would provide the necessary information that the quality lead would need to follow, right? Solution architect has a role to play in the requirements as well. And we will discuss about all these things in a bit detail in the next slide, and I'll give you more examples of what happens If you don't agree to any of those things or comments, if you think that why there is a lack of practicality into those, I would love to discuss those as well. And if you see the bottom diagram, right, that we jump into the solution to be built and implemented, and that solution architecture and the design is basically that bridge that is between that vision as well as that solution that has to be implemented. Don't just jump into doing things. And we will talk about the the very critical and not so not to be discussed topic about the agile approach and the why we are just pushing for more waterfall. That's not the case. We are also okay with the agile approach as well, or the hybrid approach, whatever works for you. But let's discuss that in the later slides as well. So talking about the vision, vision comes it's a desire to achieve something, right? You would normally have that vision coming from visionaries who could predict the future, right? But most likely it's coming where they foresee the change, where everybody is changing, they foresee the need to change, right? Or a lot of times it's just forced by the industry disruptions and the regulations, right? We see that, we know this. And this is, but what is vision is when they have decided to, when an organization has decided to go through the transformation. So knowing that is again, this definition where the reason why I'm doing this is super important, right? And that gets converted into some form of written, I would say, expressions, or and those mission statement you can say on the right hand side, some of the examples that you can read as well about, be it modernizing your legacy enterprise business applications just because you're running out of the scalability factor, or there's no support available, right? It could be earning higher profits, right? And if you think that earning higher profits is something which is there in the mission statement of this project, and you don't understand that as a solution architect, that how my solution is actually going to do that, how my solution is, imagine, you deliver the project, and sometimes those projects can take multi years, right, to be delivered. You're going back, and obviously governance and project management and a lot of things, they do play a role as well. But imagine doing that and then going back to celebrating it, and going to the C-level saying that, hey, we did that. We, spent millions of your dollars to do that. And then not being able to answer that question that, okay, what about the higher profitability that we talked about, right? Was that even converted into the requirements? Was that even reflected into the processes, right? Maybe not, because it was never understood, right? Finding unified ways of faster working, right? And while we do the job, while we are doing a lot of work in improving our applications and platform as Microsoft, right? There is a lot of things that you need to do as well in ensuring that what the product offers has to fit the statement that was written by the initial board that approved the project, right? It could be the user experience. A lot of times, I mean, simple things, right? I ask things like if it's really about that. Let's take an example of scalability, right? Which means that I would like to, or as an organization, we would like to double our revenue, or in then 3 years time or 5 years time, right? Without actually just doubling the number of people that we have in the organization or the sales team. How would you do that? You're using a sales application or a contact center application, and you know that there are a lot of pieces around it, and obviously the application teams and then the product teams like principals like Microsoft, we are doing a lot of work to bring all these innovative ways to drive value, and to bring automation, to bring seamless integrations, to bring solutions which actually help you improve the productivity of your employees. That's fine. But if that vision of being able to scale and do more with less is not converted into the requirements, and that requirement could be that currently the sales rep or the someone selling on the phone takes 15 minutes to handle, or 30 minutes to handle a customer. We need to bring it down to 20 minutes. evaluating your process accordingly. That, okay, with the use of the technology, with the improvement in the processes, how do we actually bring that 30 minutes down to 20 minutes or 15 minutes even, right? Theoretically, that the same amount of people are able to handle the more revenue. If we don't do that, then changing the application and doing all that, how is it going to ensure that you are achieving that vision? It will not do that. And this is just an example that I shared. Everything can be mapped. Anything that was the reason why a journey was embarked on has to be converted into the requirements, and so needs to be reflected in the solution architecture, right? And this is where 99% of the projects go wrong, right? Where, the RFP was done, everything was done, the project, the partner is hired, and then now we're just jumping into, okay, we need to implement finance, without even knowing. We have a lot of customers and who have just or partners who have just decided, right? Okay, all right, there's something great, and obviously does a lot of great things. But as a technology, it was decided that, and then now they're finding reasons to deploy it. That should not be the case, right? That you are finding reasons to deploy something that you decided. And yes, there could be reasons. There are times where some of the decisions are not perfect in the pre-sale side. There could be that's a risk to the program when time is not spent in the diagnostic phase. But that obviously needs to be taken care of. Going into the next, so a vision converts into your business strategy, and I've spoken a lot of it about it, but just to give you a more structure around it, that that vision has to be turned into a business strategy. And like I mentioned, the requirements again from the business, this list or this acts as a guidance of what needs to be actually done, right? And a solution architect or a duo of project manager and solution architects, right? They would have these. They would come with these processes and the way of working, the mindset to the program from day one. They would not just go in and every time they would try to bring something new. You would adjust the way you do things, the technologies, the solutions will change, but the approach, the mindset just applies to any project out there. Right. So when you actually, as an architect, look at those visions, look at the things, right, you would be asking those things like, why are you making this change? Right. And you need to be able to answer those as a solution architect. Well, you may not be the ones who have decided those things, right, those objectives and visions, but you need to be the ones who should be able to answer it towards when you are in the program as well. Right. And what are the anticipated benefits? What is the business value sought by the solution? Imagine you don't even know the value that the solution is supposed to provide to the business, right? Where do you see yourself in the organization? And a lot of these things actually turn into concrete activities as well, right? So when you know that, okay, where the organization needs to be, for example, in 5, 10, 20 years, you also understand that, okay, that means that there is that it could be that the volumes that we are discussing today may not be just relevant in 5 years from now, right? So am I just designing the solution for today or next 2 years, or is it about 5, 10, 20 years, right? That it should be able to grow. Right, what business capabilities can the organization offer with a new solution? Which clients, customers, or people in the organization will be served, right? So, and we'll talk about the people, so I'll hold on for that, my thought. Would you like to improve all the W's that we have need to be taken care of in this strategy, right? Who is going to plan, design, and deliver the solution? Obviously, that's something that is very important from the customer's perspective. When they are going into the journey, that have they chosen the partner or not? What are the regions geographically in terms of business functions? What is your rollout strategy, et cetera, et cetera? That needs to be kept in mind. And a lot of it has to be first thought from the business perspective, right? Because most of the times technology would adjust to it. If not, you might go into that discussion of handling the gaps or those sort of things. But you need to understand the business constraints and understand what is the timeline, what are constraints that they have that they need to be kept in mind. And then in the end, the most important thing, how will you incorporate technology into your solution? So that's obviously, I'm not negating the fact that this is obviously one of the most important thing as part of the business strategy when it comes to software projects, and this is where solution architect plays a big role as well. So once you have the vision and the business strategy, it is really so. I would just now go into the main pillars, right? And I mentioned in the first slide about the process, people, and data, right? So I will go into and jump into the pillars of and going and discussing in detail about those, right? So we understand process architecture is commonly understood. It's a shared view of business processes that an organization has to deliver as a product or service. It represents how an organization operates in a structured order, right? It's a complete, accurate, and well-organized process architecture. It is the most important pillar of the sort of solution design or the solution architecture, right? Now there are a lot of discussions around, hey, we do the agile approach. We would just embark on the journey. We will do the requirements in an agile way as well. But imagine not having an understanding, and that is okay when it comes to the delivery side of things, right? When you understand the whole picture, you want to go into the details, you would do it in any way, be it agile, right? That's understood, but not even able to understand, okay, what the organization does. So if you are walking in as a solution architect to an organization where you don't even understand, how they operate, what are the processes, how those processes are interlinked. What are the dependencies between the processes? How would you decide which ones to pick first, right? How would you work on setting the priorities, right? And work and talk at the same wavelength with the business or with the rest of the organization. So this is why, and we, processes are super important. Now, having that in place, and this is the first thing, is knowing and understanding the process in detail. There are a lot of dependent activities as well as the activities that are impacted by or impacting these processes, right? Which is the main pillar. And that is your scope management. So having the process in place, helps you to manage the scope. When you want to do the detailed business analysis, right? Understanding with business, knowing the nitty-gritties of the requirements, the additional flows, that is helpful when you have a high-level process chart, broken down with the taxonomies, with the level 1, 2, 3, 4s, and going to that. The requirements management, we have seen a lot of times where the requirements are simply written in the Azure DevOps or any other tool that you use, right? Just for the gaps that you find. Is that the right approach? Are you just assuming that the application that comes, that gets shipped by Microsoft, will just is okay, right? Will just work as is for the organization? I think that's a wrong expectations to start with, and that's a wrong mindset to start with. So having a full requirements traceability matrix, be it a fit or a gap, all right, and then sorry, and then working on the solution design is important. So that process architecture also helps you with the solution design. In the end, when you are going into the test management, the training side of things, everything is driven from the process architecture. So this is where we go wrong. We have done a lot of program reviews as Fast Track where we go in, we are discussing, you're a few months down the line into the program, and the program teams or the project teams are basically saying that, okay, we are still, we are into the level ones, we understand what the scope is, we understand the modules, and literally starting the project with just the understanding of the modules is there, and you are already into the solution design in the build phase. This is not correct. This is not the right approach, right? You need to have your training teams to start. You need your test management teams to start work on them. And all those teams, all those streams, they require this this process catalog. Which brings me to my next slide, which is why the process architecture. And I am basically I've put this in on the slide that it brings consistency, right? It allows unifications across the locations, team systems, not just between you and the business, but between businesses as well, right? The bigger the organization, the further the enterprise grows into different geographies and location. If you are embarking on a journey to have unified processes, you need to have that documented at first, right? Imagine you are showing something, but you don't even agree on them on paper. You have a lot of complexities around it. Um, Also, this gives a chance to the business as well as yourself and the team to understand, hey, why is this supposed to be, why is this so complex? And the reason is because it has never been documented, it has never been discussed so formally, and this actually gives you a chance to reduce the ambiguity, the complexity, right? Um, when you have all that, right, when the team actually knows that, okay, this is what we are aiming to deliver, it actually has some it has a byproduct of boosting the morale of the team as well, right? It promotes the productivity as well. So we have seen a lot of times where we are at a point, latest in the build phase, or even in the UAT phase at times, where the consultants, or the delivery team and the project team, as well as the business teams, they get into the discussions that, okay, you don't even understand the business, you don't even know the non-functional requirements, you don't even know the ifs and buts, right? Why do we want to have that, right? Why not spend time in the beginning understanding that, right? It just doesn't work. Um, the morale is really is killed when you are finding all those things, and then you are finding mistakes and you're finding gaps at such a last moment of the program, right? And in the end, if you do all that, it obviously increases the chance for user acceptance as well, and it guarantees quality, right? So imagine you have done all the work, you have spent months and months of designing it something, and it's for you as well as an architect, right? You design something, you delivered something, you think this is the it's your baby, right? You have spent so much time to build something, and when you go into the UATs, or when you go into getting the acceptance, and it doesn't fulfill the purpose, imagine your own disappointment, right? At least I would have that. So why not spend the time in the beginning, during the process architecture? So processes actually are the most important thing when it comes to is the key pillar of the solution architecture. The second is people, right? I find it really funny where architects or consultants, they walk in and they say, our job is to provide you the solution. Um, we and the processes are written by the business. We're just going to, deliver these processes without actually worrying about, whether they are right or not. And then, hey, people, and sometimes obviously that's not the case always, but in a lot of enterprise projects, you see that, hey, user securities, this is, nobody likes to work on user securities, right? We all know that. So this is just push, let the user do it. Let them design their own security rules. We write in the contracts even, right? I've seen them happening so that, okay, we will deliver the project with standard security rules. The rest is up to you. How do you do that? It just doesn't work. Yes, I understand contractually, responsibility wise, who is actually going to do that, could be from partner or customer or anyone in the organization, third parties, that's okay. But accountability is there. How would you design a solution without actually knowing the handoffs between the process, right? Imagine you just log in as a system admin, your solution works perfectly because you are able to do all that, the whole purchase cycle with 3 clicks yourself. But that's not the actual reality. There needs to be segregation of duties. How would an auditor approve that process without, segregation of duties? So you have designed a solution, but the auditor wouldn't approve a solution like that. Why would you want to do that? You have designed a solution that doesn't consider roles, which means the licensing part of it. That's not a full solution that you have delivered, right? And many other things. Also the processes. So if you don't know the handoff or shakeoff points, right? Are you just assuming that a single person goes in and would actually do the work, and then somebody else is just sitting there? How would you know that, okay, this process of, for example, needs to move from one person to the next, right? There would be major flaws in your design if you don't consider the people side of things. And then if you obviously again, like I said, that this is the not just the solution architecture, but there are dependent activities on that as well when people aspect or is not considered, right? And that is to do with on the right hand side, if you see that the communication management, the plan management, training management, as well as the testing part of things. A lot of times we have seen that those specific user roles are not even tested, right? They don't even know the project is going on, and because we don't even, and they are the right communication is not even happening with them. And the reason is because they are not even considered, right, till very end, or till, yeah, security roles, we will take care of it later. Right, that's not the, and I fully understand that the use of the standard security roles is recommended, and maybe it's easier. That's okay, but the point is that important part is that, do they work for you or not? If they work for you, great. If they don't work for you, yes, the application offers you the ability to to customize or personalize, and there is a reason why it's provided, right? This is an example in this slide of a cross-functional process flow, and I think everybody in the beginning, when we show them, hey, this is how your process looks like. Talk about the different functions, include the number, the different roles in them, include the different checkpoints. It's all taken very lightly in the beginning, but when we are in the program, it's not really done. And then you realize that, okay, this is where we went terribly wrong, right? And this is where you don't want to be in such a situation or a position. Our third pillar, data, right? This is good. A solution architect would normally, typical, our scenario is when it comes to the projects is, okay, my job is to design the solution. My job is to design the architecture. I'm worried about the overall, thing. We have a data migration lead to take care of the data. As a solution architect, you need to be involved in the data side of things as well. How could you design a solution without understanding the structure of the data? Yes, you might not be exactly worrying about the nitty-gritties of how that data would be transformed, and then moving into that, you would have a data lead to take care of that, right? And to even talk about the details. But as an architect, as a solution architect, if you don't understand, if you don't have that, if you don't include data in your solution architect, you are missing out on a lot of things. You don't know how the data is generated. Imagine you have a process that works brilliantly, but when it comes to, and you have thought about the integrations as well, right? Part of the process, you have thought about the integrations, but you forgot the data part, which means the data flow. Now you have two systems in place. You don't know which system would be the master of record. You don't understand, okay, there are two systems maintaining the same set of data, right? So how would they actually work together when both the systems are getting updated, right? You don't have your transactional records, right? Data information, and this is missed every time. Every time you go into worrying about the performance, you go into worrying about the volumes after you have designed the solution. How would you do that? Why do you do that? Why not think in the first place, okay, I'm designing this pipeline, right? Is it capable of handling 100,000 records or 1,000 records, or am I going to bring the system down when we have 1 million records coming in or going out, or how does it work? Also understanding your solution. So it's easy to say that, okay, we know that there is a BYOD concept or export to data lake. Without understanding the volume, just it's decided that, okay, we will do that. This is what our approach is. And you don't even understand that, okay, we have these number of records. The business expectation is that we need that information in 10 minutes time span, right? With a 10 minutes delay at max for analytical reports. Are you even able to do that? What would you do? Is there a technical way of being able to achieve it? Or first of all, is that requirement from data perspective even correct, even reasonable, right? So all those sort of things. And then when it comes to data, the reporting requirements, the documentation requirements, in the end, all those sort of things has impact on the other key deliverables as well, right? So if you are not thinking as a solution architect and you're not asking the right questions about data and you don't have that information, all these things that you see on the right hand side, be it the governance strategy, be it your architecture for data migration or the integration strategy or the data quality, everything will go wrong. Right. So with all these pillars in place, your data, your processes, as well as your people, in the end, you would be converting as a solution architect your and maybe working with the relevant leads, right, in a different for different sections. You need to have your solution strategy in place, and it's a consolidated view and approach that defines your overall solution. This these 10 components that we have as solution strategy is part of our success by design approach or a framework that we propose. It's a tried and tested approach. It's not something to be used only when fast track is there, and it's something that we would like you to use as a solution architect as your guiding framework, right, or your guideline, to have it in all the projects. And it's not rocket science without any of those components missing. And obviously, if it's an upgrade project, you would obviously have some additional ones as well. But if you don't have any of these things in check and documented and an approach finalized, then there's something going to go wrong with the project. Then your project will not going to be delivered, right? And those are your program strategy, your test strategy, your business process, the applications, right? So you need to know how you will be collecting the data, right? You need to know you need to have the approach, as well as when you know it as a solution architect, you will be able to talk to it and distribute it with the team, right? And a lot of times, partners obviously have that in place. And share across that this is the way, like the tools or the templates, that this is how we document, this is how we share things, this is how we collaborate, which is fine. You need to have some approach to it, right? And not having an approach at all because security, we haven't, it's not the right time of the project, we will do it later. That's wrong. You need to have the strategy, and at times the approach is something very high level. You may even just decide in the beginning that, okay, we just need to put it in the plan and we will need to do that. Security is not just about security roles, right? Security is also about the infra security. Security is also about understanding the regulation requirements, understanding, the compliance needs, right? So from your auditors as well, when you are introducing a new application, is there anything that you need to have in place, right? So usually solution architects are not even worried about those things, right? Why? Right? Are you not worried that when you are designing and you're deploying something might be invalidated by a certain certificate requirement or an auditor out there, right? Or a compliance need? How is that possible, right? So, and the other things, right? So data integration, intelligence, as well as the administration side of things, right? Which is your ALM and the environment strategy. So you are responsible as a solution architect to know all of these things, to have an idea of all these approaches, and to have that in place. Don't push it. You're a solution architect. Don't just push it on, okay, environment, I'm not worried about it. Environment, my environment administrator will take care of it. No, you need to have a strategy in place. How they will procure it for you, they will manage and maintain it for you, understood? But as a solution architect, do you understand what do you need? What capacity requirements do you have? When would you need them, right? Is it optimized? How would you keep up to date with the one version strategy? There are a lot of things, right? So all this is super critical and important. The next thing, obviously, and this is super obvious, right? That technology plays a big role. The reason I bring it the technology discussion here and why it's important for solution architect is, yes, there is a certain boundary that you have, right? When you started, when you, and that boundary is sometimes because of the technologies that we have in hand, right? You may be designing a different solution, a different way of approaching it, right? The how part, if you were having a different technology, right? Because you have, if you when you know your the technology tool set, right? Um, the access to them, what are the ones that you can capitalize on? It's important to have that sort of boundaries in place. But you don't have to be limited by them, certainly. Right. And the reason I've written these under the hood technologies is there's more beyond the normal dynamics and the power platform, right? There is integration tools that get involved. There is AI capabilities that may be needed, machine learning or data connectors and customer portals, right? External ones, as well as the mobility solutions that you may need, right? The BI tools may be out of your picture. So you need to have a full grasp of understanding of what you have, right? What you are able to capitalize on, and then finding the right balance. Right. Sorry.
I think all
Okay.
good. Someone was
Yeah.
not on mute. Yeah.
All right. Okay. So finding the right balance. And now finding the right balance, it is easy to say, like I was just mentioning, right, that that technology can be used to solve any business process, right? But technology is simply what turns the gears for your processes, people, and data. And this is super important to include all the stakeholders of this of the design decisions, because processes don't always align with the technology, right? And this is fine, right? But do your best job in doing a full fit gap analysis. Uh, we have seen a lot of times where you go into that discussion that, okay, why is it not available? This should have been this way. We are having issues around that. And obviously it's a bit around the customer and the acceptability and mindset as well. But there is no application or no solution that is fit for all anyways, right? So we are obviously growing and getting better and better. All the applications are every month, and Dynamics is that power platform, those platforms that are actually literally growing every month, right? So they're getting better and better. But a lot of it is, first of all, solved by having a real discussion when you have your requirements in place with business. That are those customizations or are the gaps even needed? Sometimes when you put a price tag to it, when you try to explain to them, they actually turn from must-haves to nice-haves, right? This really happens a lot. But if not, and you have real gaps that are not offered by the application tool sets or the technology that you have in place, we have the ISVs, right? That are offering that. Why are the solution architects not worse with the ISVs? Why don't you have your preferred ISVs handy? This is one of the tools I would say that every solution architect should have, right? When they understand that, okay, these are the gaps that I have, this is what the customer would ask, and these are logical gaps not offered by the base application. Well, we have the add-ons available for them. So why not use them? And then beyond that, we are not saying no to extensions. We actually want you to be able to extend, right? With all the new things coming out, yes, it does increases the risk, because when it comes to extensions, you have to be, again, because you don't have the processes documented, because if you don't have the full knowledge of the data and the people, right, and the solution designs really in depth documented, this is where the risk of extensions would be even higher, right? But that doesn't mean that because there is a risk, we are not supporting it. You also saw in the last that we are even doing things to improve this journey for the developer, right? We believe in this ecosystem where you're able to extend it. So we would never say no to it. So that is again the possibility which is there. However, you need to have the value risk value analysis, right? Benefit risk analysis done to understand that, okay, I'm taking on this risk of doing this extension. Would I be able to, does it make sense or not? Is it really needed or not? Right. So, and this is what the as a solution architect, you should be able to provide those solutions, right? Good. I think I have a couple more slides. So I'm going to talk about, while because we have discussed about the solution architecture, and I also want to make sure that we discuss about, because solution architect is, so you understood the requirements. We started with the a solution architect's role is to play the translator role, right, across the whole process. We started with the vision, the strategy, the requirements. You have to be involved. You need to understand that. You will bridge that gap by building a solution, right? And now it's a time when you want to get it implemented, right? Get on to the last portion of it through the bridge. And how can you not be involved in that, right? Be it the methodologies or the project management, the change management, or the governance and control. So when we talk about project management, it's basically the how, and the change is the who, right? We support all the waterfall, agile, hybrid. Things are changing. You may be where you have the base ERP in place, in a situation where you have your base ERP in place, and now you are using Power Platform to be more innovative, to go through that transformational journey, to improve to have that continuous improvement, and to improve pieces. You don't want to have a full waterfall approach, right? You would want to be in the agile approach, but you need to have the user stories in place, right? You need to have an understanding that, what is the success criteria for that project. If you don't have that, no matter which approach or methodology you go for, you will not be able to land against that vision or the success criteria, right? And this is what the projects are all about. So you have to be flexible. A lot of times you have seen that those the approaches are hybrid, where some portions of it are very waterfallish, and the others are more in the agile approach, where the requirements are not clear. There are a new set of businesses, a clean green approach to the implementation is there. So you can't have a full waterfall approach to them, right? So which makes sense. Now on the change management side of things as well, you as a solution architect understand what you have changed, right? You understand where they're coming from, what I'm introducing as an architect to them, what is that transformation that needs to happen. So it's technical and data, but it's also the people journey, right? So if you are not involved, and there will be people doing it, delivering and leading it, but if you are not taking part in those decisions, where you don't have a say, you don't have an input or accountability in that, things will not be as smooth as possible, as they can be, right, with your involvement. So it's super important to have all the leaders, including the solution architects, to be involved in the change management process as well, because you understand that what you have changed. Is it a new form that you have introduced? You would be able to give that input, right, to the change management process. And the last thing, and my one of my favorite one, is when the poor project manager is just given the whole governance and control. But this image or this slide actually gives you all the different end-to-end domains that are actually involved. And if you see that project management is just one piece of it, then you have the stakeholder management, the solution management, the risks and issues, change control, and organization. So as an architecture, you certainly will play a role being in the architecture board, for example, in the solution management, but you have to be involved in the others as well, right? Be it the risk management, be it the how the changes is controlled, because without having the input and without having the involvement of the solution architect, all this will not come together, right? You wouldn't have a solid control over the program. So it's really, and that's why, if you have noticed, and if you have worked with Fast Track, we always ask for, even in the program strategies and test strategies, for the program manager and the project manager to be involved, but also the solution architect. We need that person to be there, right? And that could be a person or more, or a duo of coming from the customer or partner. But this role is super important. A lot of times this role doesn't even exist, right? So they are like, okay, we have this lead for finance, this lead for supply chain, we have a platform or a development manager or dev lead, and there is no solution architect involved at all. Rest aside the do's and don'ts that we discussed about. So it's super important to have the solution architect there from day one, and also to understand that what the solution architect is supposed to do. Solution architect is everything, end to end, from obviously the solution perspective, right? And we know that everyone plays a role. So for example, the technical architects, they lead and orchestrate the technical architecture across the applications. The project leads or the project manager would be administering and leading the team and doing the alignments and mitigation of the risk and doing the cross collaborations, even with the partners or customers and Microsoft even, right? And then comes the solution architect that actually is guiding the users, right, towards the new vision and transformation. So like I said, solution architect plays in the beginning. Solution architect is the one who plays that role, that has the responsibility of ensuring and guiding everyone through the vision, making sure that all these things are actually aligned with the vision and the the strategy that has been put in place. This would be my last slide, where a quick recap of what we discussed, and hopefully you found it fruitful and beneficial for today, is to have their vision defined, have that business strategy created, business processes, super important, right? Have them in place, determine how the people, so the 3 pillars of business processes, people, and data. When you have these 3 things in check and you are in control of these 3 things, right? And that's not to be underestimated, obviously. Not just the processes, right? Also the people and the data. And processes, not just the high level, but the details, the NFRs as well, the non-functional, the do's and the ifs and buts, everything. Then you will be able to confidently deliver a solution that works, right, with the tools and technologies that have in place, and then also taking a role in the project change and the governance side of things. So if you like this session, this is just an extract of one of the chapters that we have. I think it's chapter 6 on solution design pillars. We have written a lot of those things based on your role, based on your interest. You can directly just jump into that relevant topic in the implementation guide, and it has nice graphics and checklists and case studies and a lot of guidance and highlights. So this is where we are hoping, and this is our effort to try to improve the success rate of the implementations going in the fields. Right. With that, I thank you. And if you have any questions or not, please let me know. There was an issue at my side around the question, so I obviously could not see much around the. Oh, I see that there are some questions.
Yeah, Adil, thanks for the great session. Yeah, there is a lot of interesting conversation happening in the chat window.
Okay, it was an error on my side, so
yeah,
I couldn't see.
no problem.
Okay.
Yeah, so if there is any unanswered question, guys, if anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask the question, feel free to do that, because I'm not able to track which questions were answered and which are still open. Yeah.
Saurabh, thank you for answering a lot of questions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My pleasure. I was looking for one thing, Adil or anyone, if you have that handy. There was a tool very recently released from Microsoft, right? There where you can see all the release features coming up. It was a kind of a portal. I was looking for that link, couldn't find. If you have it, just put it on the chat, please.
Yeah, I will.
There was a question from Rachit, I guess. What are the new features coming? How do we keep up to date? I think that's a great one to keep that handy.
Yep. I will just place it on the chat now. And I think I have, while I do that, there's one comment which I really, Yoginder, he wrote that role of SA in the steering committee, sometimes we fail to add this missing link. Actually, this is perfect, right? And I probably didn't say it or mention it explicitly, but it's super important, right? To be taking part in the steering committee, the role of solution architect, right? Because you need to be able to and that completes the journey, right? Where we talked about that a lot of things has to be discussed, right? If you are, so that goes two ways, by the way. So involving and being there in the steering committee also requires a solution architect to be fully versed and understand and being able to speak at that level of the steering board, knowing the vision and strategy. So yes, once you have that, and you're part of it, you're certainly talking at the wavelength and being able to kind of tell them, right? Because like I said, right, I mentioned it very clearly that the role of solution architect is to be the guidance, right? To guide everyone through the vision, right? That that's that person who would be taking everyone along that, right? Ensuring it. Okay. If there's anything else, or you want me to just pick up, let me know. Great, I'm just finding the.
There was a one ask, Adil. It was about having a template to standardize the security configurations across multiple customers, across multiple partners. Because what's happening right now, as part of the implementation, everyone, like being a partner, we are providing different templates and handling the security differently. So is there a strategy Microsoft can provide which can come along as a standard?
This is security. You mentioned security around security. Is that or is it
security configurations like the roles and security privileges and so on? It's always recommended like not to touch the standard roles for any customers. Okay, it's good. We always duplicate it and customize or enhance it based on to our own requirements. But customer always have the best knowledge about their roles, what they want to, and to whom they want to provide this access to. So we always ask this information, okay, what users you want to give access, and if do we have any sort of template around this feature from Microsoft as part of the
so this is this we have been receiving these kind of requests, and so this is something that we need to discuss internally. How can we improve this the security management part of things or handling it? I mean, currently we are relying on partners and the consultants that come in to take care of that. But this is certainly something that we do. One of the things about the change in the platform is the good thing is that you see a lot of things like convergence happening and all that. But the downside is that a lot of things that are admin related or, for example, security roles related, they get impacted because we would like them to be once we are in the new platform, right? And instead of and try to wait for that. So, but obviously we understand that this is a journey. You are still with the current way of using it, and we could do something better around it. So thank you for Faisal for that input.
But the time when we decide on the user security, at that time we are not very much clear. We should always go with the standard, with an assumption saying we will go with the standard, because the roles of the individuals when we really go into the implementation change very rapidly. With the introduction and the touch points within the projects, the user roles change a lot. So we can't really decide the security role.
So there is okay. And are you talking about, so there is, I understand when you're signing the project, right? But when you are into the requirements, your business is currently running, unless it's a greenfield, it's a new business that is starting. If it's an enterprise implementation or an enterprise, customer, they would actually not be budging a lot around, who does what, right? they might be, yes, there will be improvements. So when you have the current state in documented, like who does what and the processes, you will obviously take that as an opportunity. And there are times done where you look into optimizations of roles as well as optimizations of processes. That is certainly that percent is there, but not knowing them at all, like not even understanding that, okay, what are the different roles we have and how do they operate, aligning them to the standard roles, that's okay. But then communicating them back to the users that, okay, the standard roles gives you a little plus and a little minus as well, right? So sometimes it's acceptable and that's a win-win situation, but a lot of times it's not acceptable as well, right? And they are pretty strict about, certain policies on that. Right, and you would end up with certain limitations as well, right? When it comes to, for example, data level securities, that we don't want to overdo that, right? Even if the customer would like it so much, you as a solution architect would go in and try to advise them not to, and then show them how they can actually achieve it with alternative ways, right? What they're trying to achieve. But just skipping it, I don't think that's an option, right? Just saying that, okay, we don't know the security roles. I don't think that's the right
I
approach.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, just to add to what Adil is saying, my experience is that these things evolve with time as the project progresses. You can't understand or envision the entire security role and define it in one sprint and reuse it every time. But the more iteratively you move, it keeps evolving, and there are minor tweaks which happen. And the same is with your configurations also. So it definitely is important to maintain these centrally.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
This is what I was saying. Like
Yeah.
initially, we are not saying like we'll not go. It's
Yeah.
like we need to keep a track, and we need to push that into the analysis or requirement phase, where
Yeah.
we
Adil,
actually know
yeah.
this, and then we can re-estimate.
And that's the tricky part, and these things can't be estimated. So this is where a lot of project costing gets impacted, because it has to be considered to an extent. But yes, there can still be some delta. But
Yeah.
yeah, just being mindful of time. Any more questions, guys? Thanks, Adil, for the session. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that this is related to another topic. There's a program for Microsoft Catalyst. Is that is still running, or like how it is? There
It's
are,
a pre-sales
yeah,
catalyst, right? So that's
yes,
not from
yes.
the fast track team, I
Okay.
think. That's the other team, but we could, yeah, if you could drop a note or an email or a message on Teams, I will be happy to follow up and find more details for you. Yeah.
Sure.
All right, I will just take one more minute before we close off. I would like to just share my screen to share what's coming next. But once again, Adil, thanks a lot. Saurabh, thanks a lot for joining us. The value which fast track architects add in all the implementation project is just invaluable, I would say. Like, you help us take the right decision, you help customers build the confidence that the project is moving in right direction. So great job, and kudos to all the fast track architects around the globe. uh, Before we move on, I just want to take this opportunity to share what's coming next in the group. Is my screen visible, Umesh?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, okay. So this was our two very impactful sessions from Microsoft Teams. Next in our group, we have a session coming on 9th of September, which will be delivered by Vikas Garg, who is Chief Technical Officer at Befesol Technologies in India. He will be talking about enterprise health dashboards for CFOs. So it will be an interesting session where how we can manage and create some enterprise dashboards for big customers. You can scan this QR code to register for the session, and we will also share the registration link in our group handle. So keep an eye for that one. With that, yeah, we are coming towards the end. If you want to give a session in this user group, scan this QR code or reach out to us on LinkedIn. If you have any feedback, you can give it to us and we will try to incorporate it. But yes, we have last few minutes. If someone wants to unmute and say something, feel free to do that. I will be stopping the recording now. Yeah.
thank you all. Session was very good actually. So very informative, very jam-packed, and a lot of people joined, unjoined. A lot of people are joining. So yeah, wonderful session. Thank you all.
Absolutely,
All
it
right.
was really good. Thanks for organizing, Rachit and Umesh.
Thanks everyone for joining, and we wish you
Thank you,
a
Faisal,
great
for having
weekend
you
ahead.
here.
Yeah. Thanks, Faisal, for joining. Yeah. It's always great to have you.
Always you brought a military of the powerful people. So like it was hard to resist not to join today.
That's
So
nice.
that was really good. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah. Thanks again.
All right then. Thanks everyone. Have fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy
Yeah.
weekend.